What if I told you the most intelligent player of this generation never needed to sprint past defenders,
Thomas Müller.
never needed to outmuscle them,
What a goal from Thomas Müller!
and never once relied on a flashy skill move to embarrass anyone. Yet, he still outplayed everyone.
What a goal from Thomas Müller! That was poetry in motion!
Thomas Müller never fit the mold of a superstar. He ran awkwardly, passed simply, did basic celebrations.
Does anybody quite understand how Thomas Müller scored 50 Champions League goals and one looks more like an accident than the other?
But when the final whistle blew, it was his name on the score sheet. It was his fingerprint on the win. This is the story of football's great enigma, a man who made a career by ghosting into space.
More direct approach, and Thomas Müller!
Arriving where defenders never thought to look, and doing it again and again on the biggest stage in world football. He wasn't built to be a superstar, but he became a legend.
Oh, it's one of the best goals you'll ever see! What a goal from Thomas Müller! And Müller with a strike there.
Still Thomas Müller, and he will go for goal, and he has hit the target!
Before the world knew his name, before the Raumdeuter haunted defenders and lifted the World Cup, Thomas Müller was just a skinny kid from the small Bavarian village of Pale, a place better known for its pastures than footballing prodigies. At 10 years old, he began making a 50-kilometer trip to Munich multiple times a week, joining Bayern's youth academy in 2000. He wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the fastest, but from the beginning, Müller had something you couldn't teach: a sixth sense for space and timing.
He's not very fast, he's not very good at dribbling, but his IQ and touches to get away from players is so good.
He quietly climbed the ranks, helping Bayern's under-19 reach the national final in 2007 and idolizing Brazilian striker Giovanni Elber,
Brasil,
a player who was known not for his flair, but for effectiveness. In 2008, he made his reserve team debut. He came off the bench and scored. That would become a theme throughout his career. The next season, in Germany's newly formed 3rd division, Müller didn't just compete, he excelled. With 15 goals in 32 games, he finished among the league's top scorers. His instincts sharper than ever. And yet, when he made his senior debut under Jurgen Klinsmann, he didn't turn heads. A couple of substitute appearances, 1 goal in a 7-1 Champions League blowout, quiet moments, glimpses. Hard for your goals to make a real impact when your team wins 12-1 on aggregate. Bayern just really destroyed teams in the Champions League. They take no prisoners. By early 2009, Müller signed a senior contract, but even then, he was closer to being loaned out than actually breaking through. The world still didn't see his ability. Bayern nearly missed it too. Then, a new coach arrived. A coach who believed in performance over name. Louis van Gaal.
Van Gaal. Louis van Gaal.
And everything changed. In the summer of 2009, Bayern Munich's new coach Louis van Gaal took a chance on a lanky 19-year-old from the reserve. Müller always plays, the Dutchman said, a bold statement that quickly came true.
So you have to give young players the chance when they deserve it.
Thomas Müller went from being nearly loaned out to becoming a regular in the starting lineup under Van Gaal's trust. It didn't happen instantly. The season actually began with Müller on the bench, a quiet substitute in a team stacked with attacking stars. But on September 12th, everything changed. Coming off the bench against Borussia Dortmund, Müller scored 2 goals in a stunning 5-1 win. 3 days later, he repeated the feat. Another brace, this time in the Champions League against Maccabi Haifa. 4 goals in 2 games. And just like that, Bayern had no choice but to make him a starter. He was named Bundesliga Player of the Month for September, and praise began rolling in. Even from Gerd Müller, the man whose name he wore and whose legacy he was starting to echo. From that moment on, Müller never looked back. He missed just 1 match the rest of the season, and that was through suspension, not because of selection. He became a central figure in Bayern's attack, adapting effortlessly alongside Frank Ribéry and Arjen Robben, mainly playing through the center and letting his instincts lead him. He wasn't dribbling past defenders like Ribéry or outpacing everyone like Robben, but he was still outplaying everyone with every clever movement.
Again, a fantastic ball. Brilliant stuff.
every ghost-like run into space.
By Müller, it's Rafinha. Oh, that was cheeky.
He was rewriting what everyone thought an attacking midfielder is supposed to play like. In April, he scored a vital goal in a 2-1 win over Schalke that helped tip the title race. In the penultimate match of the season, he got his first hat-trick of his career against Bochum, pretty much sealing the Bundesliga crown, cause 1 week later, Bayern made it official, Bundesliga champion. Müller had started 29 games, getting 13 goals and 11 assists. Pretty insane numbers for a 20-year-old in his first full season. In the DFB Pokal final, he added another title to his name. Bayern destroyed Bremen 4-0, and Müller, who led the tournament with 4 goals and 2 assists, was again at the heart of it all. He didn't have blistering pace or flashy moves, but he impressed with his intelligent positioning and this fantastic ability to be in the right place at the right time.
It doesn't matter how he scored the goal, but he scored the goal. It doesn't matter how he played pass, but the pass was there, you know.
By season's end, the once unknown academy product had become a Bavarian fan favorite, celebrated for his work rate and match-winning instincts. He now had a permanent place in Bayern's first team. He was named the best newcomer by his fellow Bundesliga players, and he made it to the team of the season. But above all, he proved to the footballing world that you don't need to look like a superstar to play like one. Thomas Müller didn't run past you, he ran between you, and this was only the beginning. Müller carried his fairy tale rise onto the world stage that summer. The world didn't see him coming. Why would they? He looked more like a fan who had won some sort of contest to be on the pitch, rather than a future World Cup icon. But as Germany touched down in South Africa, Thomas Müller was about to shock the planet. Just a year earlier, he was fighting for minutes at Bayern. Now, at just 20 years old, he found himself handed the number 13 jersey, the same number worn by Gerd Müller, the legend he had grown up admiring. No pressure. Germany's squad was young, bold, and fearless. And leading the line, without truly being a striker, was Müller. He didn't dance with the ball, there was nothing about him that stood out, but somehow he was everywhere. Maybe it's because of those lanky legs of his. Every time a ball broke loose in the box, Müller was there.
And Müller has his 5th.
Every time a defender lost track of space, Müller was there.
He's got a pass on here for Müller. Must be 4. Is 4.
He ghosted into space the way girls ghost me when I try and set up a date. In the opening match, Müller scored against Australia with a calm finish, but that was just a warm-up. Then came England, the old rivalry, and Germany, they tore him apart. Müller scored twice in 4 devastating minutes, finishing with clinical precision, and then he celebrated like typical Müller. He didn't just beat England, he humiliated them with IQ, not some fancy tricks. Next, it was Argentina. Messi, Tevez, Higuain, a dominant force. But it was Müller again, just 3 minutes in, that made the difference. Look at this guy, he doesn't even celebrate with flair. Just a short jog, arm half raised. It's like the default celebration in FIFA. By the time the dust had settled at the World Cup, Müller had 5 goals and 3 assists, topping both charts. He was awarded the Golden Boot and named the tournament's best young player. But maybe the biggest honor he received was that he did all of this while being unapologetically himself. No special boots, no shaved patterns in his hair, no viral tricks. Just clean movement, perfect timing, and ruthless execution. Now, Germany didn't win the tournament. They fell to Spain in the semifinals. But Müller left as the brightest light, a silent assassin. Once again, he wasn't the fastest in that tournament. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the most skillful. But he outplayed everyone. In the span of just 1 month, the world discovered what Bayern already knew. You didn't need to dazzle to dominate. You just needed to understand space. And no one understood that better than Thomas Müller. Back at Bayern, Müller continued to rise as he cemented his role on the team. By the 2011-2012 season, he had shown up in every Bundesliga match for 3 straight years. His consistency and football IQ were incredible. By spring of 2012, he had made his 100th league appearance and was already seen as a leader in the squad. That season, it seemed like Bayern were destined for glory, especially after they reached the UEFA Champions League final on home soil. In their home stadium, in front of their fans, they had an opportunity to become European champions. In the 83rd minute of the final, Müller broke the deadlock with a trademark late run and header, sending the home crowd into a frenzy. It was Müller showing up once again when his team needed him the most. For a moment, it looked like the local hero had delivered the European Cup. The young skinny kid guiding Bayern Munich to a title. But then came a late equalizer from Didier Drogba. Can't really miss a header when you have a forehead this big.
What the f*** are you looking at?
With the game tied, it went to penalty shootouts. And that's when Bayern and Müller's dream were shattered in their own stadium. Müller stood on the pitch in disbelief as the realization sunk in. A night that began with joy had ended in heartbreak. A few weeks later, more pain followed. Germany was among the favorites at the 2012 Euros. However, Müller and his teammates suffered a heartbreaking semi-final defeat to Italy. For both club and country, Müller had experienced the pain of losing. The great thing about football, though, is that like any great story, it offers you a chance at redemption. For Müller and Bayern, 2013 provided the perfect script. With Jupp Heynckes now as the manager, Bayern roared back to reach another Champions League final, this time at Wembley in London. Müller was instrumental throughout the entire campaign. He scored 8 goals in Europe, as if he was on a mission to exorcise the ghost of 2012. What was so impressive about his goals were that the majority of them came in the business end of the Champions League campaign. He got a goal and assist against Arsenal in the first leg of the round of 16. Then he scored against Juventus in the first leg of the quarterfinal. In the semis, he put together a masterclass. 2 goals and an assist in the first leg against Barcelona, and then another goal in the second leg. Yes, in a match that had the greatest player of all time in Lionel Messi, Thomas Müller was actually the best player on the pitch. He didn't need Messi's magical left foot or his speed or dribbling. He just got into the right position and did what he does best. But Müller knew the campaign wasn't finished yet. The only thing standing between Müller and the Champions League trophy was Borussia Dortmund. In this all-German final, Müller's influence was felt even without him scoring. His off-the-ball run opened space in the 89th minute for Arjen Robben to score the winning goal. When the final whistle sounded, Müller dropped to his knees on the Wembley turf, overcome with emotion, as Bayern were crowned champions of Europe. It was part of an unprecedented treble that year: Bundesliga, DFB Pokal, and the Champions League. A phenomenal payoff for Müller's resilience. He had finished the season with 23 goals and 17 assists in all competitions, playing a pivotal role in every competition. Just a year after the lowest of lows, he had reached the highest high, proving beyond a doubt that he was a world-class player who could shine on the biggest stage. Well, in 2014, Müller stepped up on the biggest stage possible in football, the World Cup. Germany entered the 2014 World Cup in Brazil with sky-high expectations, and Thomas Müller ensured they were met. In the opening game, he announced himself with a hat-trick against Portugal, displaying once again his best quality, finding space in tight spaces, and of course clinical finishing. As the tournament progressed, Müller's intelligent movement and selfless link-up play were the heartbeat of Germany's attack. He had a direct hand in Germany absolutely slapping the host nation Brazil in the infamous 7-1 semi-final. He scored the opening goal and kept causing chaos in between the defenders. I'm pretty sure David Luiz still has nightmares about Müller. People tried to upload the Brazil vs Germany highlights to Pornhub, but the site wouldn't allow it. It doesn't accept abuse. In the final, Müller went the full 120 minutes, tirelessly working to stretch Argentina's defense. And when the final whistle blew at the Maracanã, Germany were champions. And the 24-year-old Müller had 5 goals to his name and a World Cup winner's medal. With confetti flying everywhere, you could see Müller leaping with joy, that cheeky grin on his face. 4 years after announcing himself to the world, he had reached football's pinnacle. Despite, again, not fitting the mold of a typical superstar, he was one of the tournament's most important players, earning a silver boot as the second highest scorer in the tournament, and he booked his place in the World Cup All-Star 11. This was the crowning moment of Müller's career. Once again, he had beaten Messi, but more importantly, he had become a world champion, just a year after becoming a European champion. The kid from a small Bavarian village had conquered the world through footballing IQ, timing, and heart. Yes, his socks were low. Yes, he had no swag, but he didn't need any of that. Having won every major honor by 25, you might think that Müller would have eased off, but instead, he continued to reinvent his game. Around this time is when he began to be known as the Raumdeuter, or the interpreter of space, to describe his unique role. Under Pep Guardiola, Müller often played as an attacking midfielder or a second striker, ghosting into gaps that no one else saw. He started the 2015-2016 season on fire, scoring 20 league goals, the best tally of his career. Whether it was finishing swift passing moves or arriving late in the box, he had perfected the art of being effective, overlooking elegant. Domestically, Bayern kept dominating. Like, at this point, winning the Bundesliga with Müller as a teammate is like losing your virginity to a prostitute. But internationally, Germany fell just short at Euro 2016, losing in the semifinals. Müller, for all of his World Cup heroics, still couldn't perform at a European championship. It was odd. How can he be so good in the World Cup, but so bad against European teams? After the Euros, Müller received more criticism in the following years. Critics were pointing to his awkward technique and using that as a reason for why his goal tally was so low. In these years, Müller was regularly getting double-digit in assists, but he was rarely getting double-digit in goals. He was now the vice captain at Bayern and the team's spiritual leader, but his goal-scoring numbers were now significantly lower than what we had seen in previous years. Then in the summer of 2018, things got worse. Müller and Germany experienced a shocking fall from grace. As reigning World Cup champions, Germany were expected to just stroll through their group in Russia, but reality proved otherwise. The team crashed out in the first round, and the unthinkable humiliation hit veterans like Müller the hardest. Once the energetic young talisman, he was now one of the senior leaders, struggling to inspire a disjointed side. Müller battled on the field, but his usual magic wasn't working. No clever run or flick could save Germany from an early exit. "It's an absolute catastrophe," Müller said afterwards, describing the feeling of powerlessness as the four-time champions were sent packing to Cancun. For Müller, this World Cup was a tough moment, the first time he had failed to score in the tournament, leaving him with a hollow ache, as critics wondered if the Raumdeuter's time at the top was fading. Was the magic leaving his short socks? Cause that year was challenging for him at the club level as well. Bayern, though still Bundesliga winners, showed cracks in Europe and were dealing with a tough transition between managers. Can't really blame them. Imagine going from Pep's micromanaging tactical setup to Carlo Ancelotti, who just raises his eyebrow when you need a goal. Müller's form really dipped under Carlo, who at times left him on the bench. This again led to questions on whether Müller's best days were behind him.
Müller, of course, he is not happy because he doesn't score, but
the whispers grew louder that perhaps this unconventional genius might actually be losing his edge, a notion that Müller was not about to accept. "2018 was a low point on the pitch, but then 2019 delivered an emotional blow off of it. In March, Germany coach Joachim Löw stunned the footballing world by announcing that he would no longer consider Thomas Müller for the national team.
Due to performances and results in the past year, it was of course essential and unavoidable for us in the coaching team to make certain changes.
At 29 years old, Müller, a World Cup hero with 100 caps, was suddenly cast out. Löw framed it as a new start for Germany, as on top of Müller, other good players like Mats Hummels and Jerome Boateng were also not selected. But for Müller, it felt like a public dismissal of his value. Now of course, as usual, Müller dealt with the matter with grace and diplomacy. He thanked the fans and vowed to keep pushing. But privately he was hurt and determined to prove a point. The news came as Bayern were also undergoing their own rebuild. New coach Niko Kovac was sometimes relegating Müller to a substitute role, which led to frustrated headlines and even a social media post from Müller's wife. That's goals right there. Your wife defending you for the manager being a bozo? For Müller, it was a test of hardship unlike anything he'd faced, because before this his journey was pretty much a continued rise. Sure, he was doubted in the beginning, but throughout his entire career he was a winner, a player who was constantly on the pitch, making an impact. Now, under 3 different managers, he was rejected. So he decided to answer the only way he knew how, on the pitch. As critics tried to predict his decline, he gradually fought his way back into Bayern's starting lineup, letting his performances speak instead of his wife. His vision and creativity really flourished in a deeper playmaking role. By the end of 2019, Bayern actually ended up parting ways with Kovac and appointed Hansi Flick. And to nobody's surprise, under Flick, Müller was immediately revitalized. I don't know what Flick does, but he's the closest thing I've seen to a miracle worker in football. With new confidence, Müller embraced being the experienced head among Bayern's young charges. He was happy being the unk. He was down, but far from out, a fact that he was about to make abundantly clear. The 2019-2020 season became a renaissance for Müller. If his story was a play, it would be the thrilling second act. Rejuvenated under Flick, Müller turned into the assist king of Europe. He broke Kevin De Bruyne's record for the most assists in a single Bundesliga campaign while playing nothing like Kevin De Bruyne. De Bruyne is doing all these fancy passes with both feet, whipping in these Beckham-like crosses. Müller was just using his IQ and of course his vision, but he wasn't pinging the ball like the guy from Home Alone. Bayern went on a phenomenal run, and Müller was at the heart of it, orchestrating the attack with one-touch layoffs, clever dummies, and of course his trademark late runs into the box. Like I said, he didn't play like Kevin De Bruyne, but that doesn't mean he isn't a genius. In the Champions League quarterfinals, he gave a vintage performance, scoring 2 goals in an 8-2 demolition of Barca. I don't know what Müller has against Messi, but every time they play each other, Müller outplays him. This Barcelona defense was horrendous, so when they saw Müller's movement, they thought he was a wizard. That performance was the embodiment of Müller's strength. He didn't outsprint anyone, he didn't outmuscle the opposition. He was just smarter than everyone on the pitch. I guess it's not that hard to be smarter than Ter Stegen and Piqué, but you guys get what I'm saying. As Bayern swept up all the trophies that year, Müller was back. Yes, he was older now, a veteran at 30. There was wrinkles on his skin, but he had gone from being a bench warmer to lifting the Champions League for the second time in his career. He had silenced any remaining doubters in an emphatic fashion. It was the sweetest type of victory. He had been written off by club and country. Now he was back to being a central figure in Bayern Munich's rise back to the top. His bond with Robert Lewandowski and Kimmich was great to see. That season really showed Müller's leadership and his winning mentality. On the pitch, cameras often caught Müller barking out orders or encouraging his teammates. Sure, he might be a joker off the pitch, but on it, he's a general. By 2020's end, he had become the most decorated German footballer ever, with 27 major trophies to his name. The Raumdeuter was alive and well. As fate would have it, Müller's resurgence forced Germany to recall him back to the international stage. In May of 2021, Lowe made a dramatic U-turn and recalled Müller for the delayed Euro 2020 tournament. 2 years after being told he was a surplus to requirements, Müller wore the Germany shirt again. This time he was older, wiser, but just as passionate. His return was symbolic in many ways. He was no longer the fresh-faced youngster of 2010. He was now an older player, ready to guide Die Mannschafts's new generation. In Germany's group stage battles, he was constantly talking to his teammates, pointing out spaces, and doing everything to will the team forward. Then came the round of 16 match against England at Wembley, a fixture that is just filled with history. With Germany trailing 1-0 in the second half, a single chance fell to Müller's feet that could have changed everything. He was clean through on goal, with only the keeper to beat. He had scored this chance 1,000 times, but this time, it wasn't a fairy tale ending. His shot dragged just wide of the post. Germany went on to lose that game, and Müller's return, which he hoped would have ended in victory, instead ended in heartbreak. Once again though, Müller was very gracious even in defeat. He took to social media to apologize to the fans, saying how badly it hurt him not to deliver joy to the nation, especially in his return. But even in that moment of disappointment, his class shone through. Müller, pressed on and determined to help Germany one last time on the biggest stage, now had another opportunity, the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. He was one of only a few players left from the 2014 World Champion, but now he was playing under Hansi Flick, the man who had revived his career at Bayern. It felt like a movie. Müller, one of the oldest players on the team, trying to spark a new miracle with a team in transition, but reality wrote a far harsher script. Germany stumbled again, failing to escape the group stage. For Müller, it was a bitter pill to swallow. Another early World Cup exit. This is a guy who early in his international career was accustomed to winning. Now it seemed like every 2 years he was losing. At 33, he understood that this might well have been his final World Cup match. As the final whistle blew on Germany's tournament, an emotional Müller stood before the fans with tears in his eyes. It was clear that this was going to be his last game for Germany. It was a sad moment. The boy who had burst onto the scene in 2010 was now saying goodbye. Although that was the last World Cup for Müller, he had one last hoorah in him on the international stage, and that was Euro 2024. Hosted in Müller's homeland, Germany. Although he had contemplated retiring altogether after Qatar, the prospect of a tournament at home was too meaningful to pass up. In his last ever tournament for Germany, Müller played mostly as a super sub, mentoring the young stars off the pitch and showing up in some brief cameos. Germany's campaign ended in the quarterfinals against Spain, who went on to become champions, and Müller knew his time had come. In July of 2024, he announced his retirement from international football after 14 years of service. He walked away with 131 caps and 45 goals for Germany, a World Cup gold medal, and a lifetime of memories. It was the end of an era, Germany bidding farewell to one of its all-time greats. With his time at Bayern coming to an end as well, Germany and the entire world of football was saying goodbye to a legend. Müller's story is one of defying expectations at every turn. In a time where everyone is obsessed with individual brilliance, skills that show up on highlight reels, and fancy haircuts, Müller made his name by doing the subtle things well. He was phenomenal at doing the things that often go unnoticed, at least until the ball goes into the back of the net. He really was a one-of-a-kind player. How do you view a player who isn't fast, strong, or does fancy skill moves, yet he's always there when it matters? Müller pretty much answered that question over the course of his career. He became the all-time appearance leader for Bayern Munich, winning Bundesliga titles season after season. He lifted 2 Champions League trophies, a World Cup, and a plethora of other silverware, and he did it while being at the heart of the team. His teammates speak of his enthusiasm and humor that really infected everyone.
Mbappe or Henry?
How do you mean it? To date them or... Huh?
But while he was a funny guy, on the pitch he was fierce. Nobody wants to go up against Müller, the man who goes into the box, and before you know it, he's put 3 goals past you. But Müller will be remembered not just for the goals and trophies, but for the joy and spirit he brought to the game. The way he played was completely unique. He found and interpreted the spaces no one else could, and in doing so, he carved out a space for himself in football history that nobody will be able to touch.